What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Never Lag for, let me think. October, about September. Can you
It's our
believe
September. It's our September episode for anyone.
it's October already, Zach?
Yeah, isn't it crazy? Beginning of October.
You know what? History will not look back on this episode and remember that it was a month late. It will only remember how excellent it was. So
Yeah, exactly. It'll
that's
it'll just know how consequential this podcast was. That's all that we'll
right. A
remember.
real turning point for this channel in
Yeah.
quality and viewership, I'm sure. So anyways, welcome back to Never Lag. We're going to talk about September. I'm one of your hosts, Levi, joined by Zach, as always. And we're going to talk about just life and video games in September of 2024. First of all, how was your September? Was it a good September?
Well, recalling it's actually early November as of recording this, and looking back to September, I don't even remember what was going on. My younger brother got married in October, so I think September we were like doing some wedding prep stuff, and then yeah, that's it. I have a video game to talk about, but my brain does not go back that far. I've cleared all
It
history
is
as of
officially
like
too far.
2 weeks ago. So, what about you? What did your September look like?
Your brain automatically deletes content from about
Yeah.
2 weeks or
Yep.
later.
Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
cleared the cache too, so I forgot all my passwords. Whatever.
Yeah. I feel like there's been a lot of weddings anecdotally between your friend group and mine just in fall, which I guess that is a normal time for weddings, but usually it's more, isn't spring and summer more? I don't know. Fall is pretty normal, I guess.
Fall's normal-ish. I mean, October is a little strange, or I don't want to say strange. Sorry, Ethan, if you're listening.
Yeah. What a weirdo.
I think it's price based for some people, where it's like you can do spring or summer, but things are just more expensive. So it's like, why wouldn't you?
Right.
If I was
Yeah.
getting married,
I
I
think
would
that's
do
why
it
we got married on
December.
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd do December 25th, Christmas Day,
Make sure it's a Friday the 13th.
Friday the. Oh
December
yeah,
13th.
that's actually a good one. Friday the 13th. Pick the unluckiest
There you
day
go.
ever. So
Oh
anyway,
man.
yeah,
Well, you know what?
I
I
don't know
don't
what else.
remember anything from September either. Work's been busy. Life continues on. But
Life has
what I
lifed it
do
up,
have, what I do have is a list of video games that I
and
allegedly
that's
played in September.
and that's all that matters. That's all we're here for.
So we can start there. I guess we'll start with me because you've made it known that you have a
I
singular
have one game in September, so yeah,
a
you should get going.
singular game. I don't know if we'll leave you for last or we'll just like surprise people somewhere in the middle. We'll get to talk about your game
I'll cut you off at some
um,
unexpected moment and just start going.
in the middle of something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, to kick things off, man, this is taking it back. I'm having to dig into the recesses of my memory, but my brother and I think we might have discussed this like briefly in other podcasts, but we did finish the Final Shape campaign,
Mm.
Destiny's most recent campaign expansion. So we did finish that campaign. We didn't really do much beyond that. It was maybe a dozen missions, 12 to a dozen ish in total. And my quick thoughts are just that it was really good, but it was just really good. It wasn't. I feel like the Final Shape really. I mean, it popped off as one of the top um, review scores of the year. Like I think it's in the
Yeah,
top
it
three
reviewed well.
still.
Yeah,
And
it was 90s, right? It was in the
I think it
90s.
was 92 or 3
For Destiny. That's for a Destiny
for a Destiny
expansion. That's pretty
expansion.
crazy.
For anything, that's
For
crazy.
anything Destiny at this point, like that's
Yeah,
even though
yeah.
it's a good game, it's a controversial one, so it must have been pretty good.
And despite its critical acclaim, it didn't save the devs or anything. There was still catastrophe after. But I can't speak to like the raid. I actually really wanted to experience the raid. I didn't get to it. I'm not at a point where in my life at the moment where I can go to Reddit or not Reddit, Discord and like try and find a raid group. And I'm just not right there at the moment, even though I really
Yeah.
wish I could, because I've heard great things about the raid, and the raiding in Destiny has always been the highlight of the experience. I look back on
Yeah.
just about any of my top multiplayer memories from gaming are in a Destiny raid. So I am missing the post campaign stuff. I didn't really dig into the live service, the raid, the story elements beyond the campaign. And I'm sure that that impacts a lot of these scores.
Mm-hmm.
But just surface level, the campaign was really good. Like if you like first person shooter, you know, kind of hero super based combat in general. I mean, Destiny has great combat. If you enjoy it and you just want, you know, maybe like 8 to 10 hours of, that might be a little extreme, 6 to 8 hours of pretty good content. I will say the writing actually, I feel like it really ebbs and flows in Destiny. There's been some really bad moments and some really bright spots, and I feel like this
Mm-hmm.
was near the pinnacle of writing. There were some very believable moments between characters that we've known for a decade at this point, that felt very real, like them tackling real emotions and things happening in the universe, um, playing off of one another. And I do wish, I think at this point now your character does have a voice, which it didn't
Oh,
used to,
interesting.
but
Yeah.
it's still seldom used, and that's the only weird part. Is it just feels like you're a fly on the wall, in all of these interactions, watching something really interesting happen, but you're just kind of standing there like creeping, you know, just kind of awkwardly staring at them while they have this really intense conversation. So
What does the voice
um,
sound like of your? It's a
it's
me,
just a it's a
Destiny.
Destiny character. Yeah, they ripped it straight from. No,
They
it's
just got that guy. He didn't get
yeah,
the
yeah,
Mario movie, so
Chris
they
Pratt.
hired him. Yeah,
Yeah, it's Chris Pratt.
yeah. It's actual Chris Pratt.
It's just I couldn't tell you. It's a generic hero voice, you know. I don't
Right,
know.
right. Yeah. Okay. That's what I expected.
So anyways, it was a good time. At the end of the day, I don't know if it's anything I will like remember. It's not. It didn't stand out to me as much as maybe I thought it would. But that's always the catch with expectations when things review
Yeah.
so highly. Maybe you're like, oh, this is going to be, you know. I think a lot of people think to Titanfall 2 as the pinnacle of a first person shooter campaign, and I don't know that there were any highs that came close to something like that. I will say Destiny Bungie, they continue every single expansion to be near the top of the industry, if not the top in just like art design, um, and you know, backdrops, what's the sky boxes, ground
Yeah.
boxes, all the boxes, you know. Um,
Yep.
and they really turned it up to 11. Like you're just, I was taking screenshots. You're running through rooms, the atmosphere, the like weight of the air, the mist in the air, and then the color palette. They really cranked up the vibrancy. So you're running from a room that's like glowing red into a dark tunnel with all these creepy little alien bug like bumps on the walls, and then there's a um, like a window and you're underwater and everything's like turquoise, and there's just really cool set pieces in
Yeah.
this campaign. I think that's what stuck with me the most was just some of those rooms in different areas that you went
Some
into.
good art
So
direction, some good visuals. Yeah.
as always,
That's cool. I mean, I liked Destiny. I feel like my one of my biggest issues is just getting back into it. It's been years since I played it, and Bungie classically has not made it easy for new players or returning players to like catch up super easily without like buying a bunch of DLC stuff. And I don't know if that's been resolved at all. That's what
no.
prevented me from wanting to try it. That and like I also enjoyed the raids I've played in years past were some of the highlights of my illustrious gaming career. But you know, as an adult with kids, it's just like it's hard to figure out coordinate. But um, it sounds cool. I love Destiny's shooting and combat. It feels great, even with all those issues. Like there's always like a core thing there that worked really well, which is why it lasted the full 10 years of their projected roadmap. And I don't know if Destiny's going to keep going. I could see it continuing to chug along for a while. So um, I'm
I'm
glad the
really
final
curious to
shape is
see
good.
like what they do from here. I know we've talked about this in the past, but it really feels like, I mean, Sony at large are going through some pretty massive changes with Concord
Yeah.
shutting down and them basically dissolving Firewalk, the studio, which we all
Mm-hmm.
saw coming. They're canceling a lot of live service stuff. More and more control is being given to Sony rather than Bungie, which was inevitable. Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. We've heard that there's been no Destiny 3 in development,
Yeah.
but it really does feel like Destiny, unless they're just going to coast, you know, into the ether and salvage what money they can from the player base that's still around, although I'm sure a lot have fallen off. It feels like they need a real reset. And if not
Yeah.
Destiny 3, they need to like all but in name reboot Destiny 2, because like you said, players like
Yeah.
you or even me are just not coming back to stay the way in the state that it is right now, and there's no path to like getting back into it. It's so convoluted, and
Yeah.
whether it's the pricing structure or even just like booting up the game and looking at the map and all the objective, it's just everything is such a cluster.
Yeah.
There's no intuitive interface about what to do or where to go or why to do it. It's a complete mess 10 years in. And so yeah, I don't know, they need to redo it. I will say though, just final thoughts here, if you've enjoyed Destiny and you can get this on sale, I don't know what it is retail. I think it retailed at like $50, which is way too much if you're just going to do the campaign, which at this point
Yeah.
the zeitgeist is over. So if you can get it way cheaper, it is a fun campaign to run through, and you can do it single player, minimal investment, jump in and just play this campaign as if it were like a COD campaign, or just something you're just popping in for a few hours to play a super zany first person campaign. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely worth that at the price point around 15 to $20
That's what I was
probably, but
thinking.
it might be a while before you can get it there. I don't know.
I feel like they, in the year, like 1+ year timeline, you can start to see those DLCs in that. I feel like I've seen a lot of the Destiny DLCs cheaper.
Yeah.
So I'm sure at
Yeah,
some
we'll see.
point I might do that, because again, I played Destiny for a few years. We played it for a while, and I was pretty into it for a minute. So I'd kind of like to revisit it, but um, we'll see. There's a lot of other things to get to, and I'm also curious if they like where they go, kind of like World of Warcraft. It's like, where do you go from here? Like, there's still people into it. Got some really good core things to it,
Yeah.
but they need to do something to it. And I don't know what
But
Sony's
WoW, if you
appetite.
if you want to compare the two, WoW has such a better system
It
for
does. Yeah.
resetting things every expansion. If I go back and buy the most recent expansion, I don't have to go buy all the other previous ones. I'm not
Yeah.
locked out of content.
And it's clear what,
Everyone
like,
kind
it
of,
drops you in, and it gives you
yeah,
quests, and
it's
it's very
clear where
clear
to
what to
go,
do.
what to do. Everyone's kind of reset at the same point for every expansion. Destiny is just too much. It's trying to do. It's got too many season passes, and it's just not
Yeah.
not streamlined enough. And I
Yeah.
think that's why WoW has been able to continue long past the point we thought it was gonna, decline and cease to exist. It's still running, and I think maybe that's partly why is it's easy to pop back in when an expansion is exciting and just play for that expansion and then disappear again. Destiny does not make that easy, so
Yeah. Yep.
we'll see. I'm
We'll
curious to
see
see
if
what
the
happens
final
with
shape
with
is the final shape.
yeah, it might be, it might very well be. um Moving on from there, this is a game I kind of want to get back to, but speaking of live service failures, I guess is the segue. um I ended up starting Wayfinders in September, which was originally an MMO, um, that was in development, and yeah, it was gonna be. It kind of has. Oh no, what's the
um Now I know what you're talking about, and
yeah?
I'm
What's the
forgetting what it's
MMO
called.
that disappeared that I love so dearly?
um
Oh no, it's in my Steam library. Let me pull it up real quick.
I don't know why
I think
StarCraft and Starfield are coming to mind, and it's
it's so
definitely not
close to
those.
that.
It's something
WildStar.
WildStar, that's what it
I
is.
was like, I know it's Star something. It has intense WildStar vibes, which honestly, I miss WildStar a
I miss
lot.
WildStar too. That was a cool game.
I was so sad that that game didn't stand the test of time, because I thought it
I
really,
know. It was neat.
um, it had a nice. I think it complemented WoW nicely in the space, I guess is what I'll say. It was different enough. Now I got Steam blocking everything here. So, anyways, this was an MMO, and it was a failure basically. And instead of just tossing it into the trash, the studio actually went through the effort of completely removing all microtransactions, all like live service elements, and turning this into a single player or cooperative experience. So basically, you can create a character and run through a full length campaign with, like little dungeons and bosses. And um, it is hero based. That is the one difference. Did I say create a character? So you don't create a character as much as you select from.
You
I
select
think
one.
there's like
Yeah.
6 or 7, and you can unlock more as you go by playing the game. Again, there are no microtransactions in this game anymore, and it's really cool. I want to get back to it. This was before 1.0. 1.0 launched for this game, and it came out on consoles now. I
Mm-hmm.
believe at the end of October.
Yeah, I
So
want to try this. It looks up my alley.
yeah, this is a game we'd mentioned to you. Me and my brother played it. Even my wife played it. She was enjoying it, and it's a game that's easy. I think it's up to three-person co-op. And it's just, again, I love that it's not live service. I love that there's no season pass or anything. Um, and it's the co-op was really seamless. It's got player housing. You can like kit out your house and just you get items throughout the game that you can add furniture and pets, and it's a really fleshed out game. Honestly, at this point, you can tell they put a lot of love into this game, and it's nice that they were able to salvage it into something else. It would be cool to me if this game were successful enough, um, that they could go on to release expansions for it, in the way that Destiny maybe was back early on before it got super live servicey. It was just, an
Yeah.
expansion a year or something. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but yeah, it's a third person action combat game with like abilities and very, very stylized art style in the vein of WildStar. But it's one I want to get back to now that it's in 1.0. I haven't checked it out since the 1.0 release. And yeah, maybe we'll get some time where, me and my brother and maybe you, well, we can jump in and play some of this game. It's one of those that it's rare to find a good co-op experience like this that isn't trying to suck all of your time or nickel and
Yeah.
dime you. So
I know so many things follow the live service monetization model, trying to keep you engaged every day. It's kind of refreshing to have a game where it's like, hey, there's some new content, you go play it, and then you can be done, but it still has multiplayer. We could use some more of that. So I would like to try this out at some point. I was pretty deep in another game in September and was trying to wrap up a couple things that I'll talk about, but this does look cool.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool and it's fun to play. Gameplay is good. Um, it's kind of got your typical. The story's fine. A lot of the quests are go here and kill this many things. It's very MMO in that way. But I mean, that's a little bit of comfort food. I don't really mind that. Um, it's not necessarily open world, but it is open zone and pretty big zones to explore. And there's different things that you need different characters to unlock to interact with. So you're incentivized to unlock new characters and upgrade them and kind of um, customize them to your playstyle and then swap between characters on the fly, which is really easy to do.
Okay,
Um,
nice.
so yeah, it's I like what it's doing. I feel like I would love it if it could find its footing, if it gets enough traction here with its 1.0 release. I worry that it won't, but at the very least, it seems like there's a full campaign and just lots of content to
Yeah.
experience as a one and done game. So hopefully we can get back to that. I'm curious, Astrobot. It's on my list. Is it September or October for you?
It's October for me.
Okay, then maybe we'll just wait to talk about it then, because I kind of
Okay.
I bridged both months with Astrobot. Um,
Gotcha.
so we'll mark that one off. We'll talk
Okay,
about that
let's say
one
that for
next
next
month,
month. Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see you way in the future in November when
All
we
right.
release our October
I
episode
think it's
as
time
well.
for our intermission where we get to hear what you played in September.
Okay. Zach intermission, the one thing I played.
Doo-doo-doo.
So that's partly because I had a busy month, but also because I played a pretty big game. I finally got around to playing Horizon Forbidden West, which was one of my most anticipated PS5. I guess it's technically a cross-gen game, but it's one of my most anticipated games uh, since getting a PS5. And I got it when it came out in February. I think it was February of 2022. So it's
Yep.
been
Yeah.
2.5 years. And I felt like it was time. Like I wanted to have experienced this. What happened is I started playing it and then Elden Ring came out and then I started playing that. and got wrapped up in Elden Ring, and then life kind of got in the way, and I never got back to Forbidden West, which is kind of ironic, or maybe just like poetic, because when the original Horizon
Tragically
Forbidden West
poetic.
came out in 2017, I started it. A couple days in, the Nintendo Switch launched with Breath of the Wild, and then I started playing that, and that kind of took over. It was years before I got back and finished
The
Forbidden
real
West.
question is, what game is going to come out a week after Horizon 3? It's
That
going to be a
is,
banger, whatever it
it's
is.
gonna it's gonna be whatever
It's going to be
Miyazaki
generation
does
defining.
next. It's gonna be like, Elden Souls, like
Yes.
transcendent FromSoft game,
It's going to be a
or it'll
cross. It's
be,
going to be a. It's going to be a. What's the word I'm thinking of? A cross between like Breath of the Wild and like it's going to be Link and Miyazaki. He's going to team up with Nintendo
yeah,
and make an Elden Ring Zelda game.
yeah, exactly.
That's what's
It's
going to
gonna
come out
be,
right after Horizon 3.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be 2 days, 2 days after.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what it is about their scheduling, but um, I decided after,
Crossover. That's the word.
well, and also kind of I replayed Elden Ring and then played Shadow of the Erd Tree. That was what I played in like July, August. Um, and it was after finishing that I kind of realized I want to have experienced Forbidden West. I want to know what this game is like, and not just get it out of the way. Like, I was excited to play it, but also kind of like I want to have done that so that I can feel like I can move on a little bit. Like, I feel like I had this building backlog of like major
Right.
experiences that I had just been anticipating.
It's a big backlog item.
It's a big backlog item, especially for me.
Was it
Like, it was
down? Here's a question: was it downloaded on your PlayStation all this time?
yes, I think so.
There's another reason, dude. That thing is like what,
I
100
know
plus gigs.
it's pretty big. Yeah. So,
That's the
um,
same reason I did the DLC the other month. I was like, I have to delete this off my PlayStation, and I do not
I
want
need
to
to finish.
re-download 120 gigs.
I need to finish the DLC soon because I'm like halfway through the DLC for the same reason. I'm like, I want to be able to get this off of here. Um, so yeah, anyway, I am excited to have played it. I think it's a really good game. The other thing, besides launching right before Elden Ring, the other problem they had was just a slew of technical and performance and visual issues at launch that plagued them for months, if not 6 months plus. I forget exactly how long it was, but it was over half a year.
Oh, it was at
Long
least a
enough
year.
that a year. Yeah, it was long enough that like we'd all kind of forgotten about it. And
We talked about it for a year. I'm pretty sure.
yeah. Um, and yeah, it was enough that like we'd kind of moved on and we're hoping it would improve, but we kind of got to the point where we're like, I don't think this is going to improve. But what's interesting is jumping in over 2 years later, it has for the most part. Like, it still has some of the fundamental like performance or like fidelity issues, but they managed to like work with the limitations of um like the I don't know the terminology. You'd probably know better than me, but they managed to kind of work with their limitations and make it look better. And so even though it
Voodoo.
looks a little fuzzy in some ways, they almost made that feel aesthetic or stylistic. The performance is much better. And it's a stunning game. Like, some of the performance stuff aside, once they got that resolved, you're able to truly appreciate just how beautiful the vistas and the skyboxes, the design of the natural locations throughout the map, really good. I mean, one of my favorite things was like hiking these like Everest sized mountain peaks covered in snow at night and looking up and just seeing like a blanket of stars, like this just
Dude,
glowing
I
celestial
legitimately
ceiling.
have. Do I still have it? Yeah. So let's see. You probably won't be able to see this on the camera here, but that is a screenshot I've had as my background from Forbidden West
For
for
over two
like
years,
for
or
like two
since you
years
played
now,
it. Yeah,
and it literally looks photorealistic. Like,
it does. But
you look at it
photorealistic,
and
but
you
still
would
better.
not. Yeah, but better than you could ever. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And it's from that mountain. Like when you get up on the snowy peak
yeah,
before you like descend, and it's just like a clear snowy night and the stars.
gorgeous. One of
That
the
was pretty. That was one of those moments where, and then I don't know if you did this, but this is kind of, I think the you were probably up there because it was directing you beyond the canyon or whatever in the mountain
mhm,
pass, and
yeah,
so from there you like jump and glide down in between the like carved out canyon
yeah,
passageway.
yep,
Dude, that was just epic.
super epic. And there are more than a few locations that are stunning like that in their own ways. And there are more than a few really epic moments like that. Enough that the whole game feels like you are exploring this huge mountainous or like this odyssey of like all of these different locations. And that kind of ties into the map size too. The humongous map, even for just the base game of Forbidden West. I feel like it's one of the biggest.
But I would also say not too big. Like I feel like it's not the biggest, but it's perfectly big. I don't know.
I,
There at no point does it feel overwhelming
it
or
didn't
too
feel
large of a map.
to me it felt like one of the biggest I played in, but it also didn't feel overwhelming. Like I think part of it is you're in the wild, and so you're kind of, and it also has mechanics that makes it feel good. Like the especially later in the game, there you unlock things for travel that make it better. There's fast travel and some other stuff, but it feels vast though to me. Like, and I think that's part of what's cool is like Aloy is
Oh, and you
going
know what?
out.
Let's just go ahead and say spoilers for this game because it's been long enough.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to dance around like
yeah.
story
So
and stuff. If
the
you haven't played Forbidden West, then go away, I guess. I don't know.
I guess
Like,
my spoiler free review is that it's a really good game, worth playing if you're at all interested in it. And I think it delivers on pretty much every metric, even though there's a couple things that could be improved, but it's very much
and
like a nine.
improves literally almost everything from the base game or the first game.
Yeah. For me personally, it's like a 9.5 out of 10. I think for a lot of people, it probably could fall in the 9 range for you. So go, if you're interested in it, it's worth it. But
Yeah.
yeah, spoilers from here on out.
So once you unlock flying,
Yeah, once you unlock your
which we
flying
all,
mount, which is a little late in the game, but um,
it'd be nice if it
uh,
was a little sooner, but
perhaps. But I don't know. I never felt burdened by the size of the map, which is kind of what you're saying. But at the same time, it felt vast. Like this map felt like one of the biggest in a good way.
I
Because I know
think I think
sometimes,
the reason for that is that in agreeing with you, I think the map design and the topography of the area that
yeah,
they made, I think is maybe one of the strongest parts of the game. And so even if the map size is huge, you don't feel that because each region or biome is the perfect size and like
yeah,
seamlessly transitions into the next. And so it's so varied every region from
hmm
like I'll always remember that the town it's kind of in the southwest that's built on top of the waterfalls.
oh yeah,
That
I
town
love
is
that
I don't
town.
remember the name of it, but that was just so scenic and just such a cool spot. I feel like all the towns in this game are built in
We're cool.
such cool ways in connection with the environment that they're in.
Yeah,
Um, the desert one is just like this spire in the middle of a desert
Scalding
that this
Spear.
fortress, Scalding
Yeah,
Spear, just all of the locales and towns within them and everything are so good. They're
yeah,
just
no,
so good. They're visually stunning. You're taking screenshots, and then yeah, as soon
mhm,
as you're like, oh, this is a lot of desert, it transitions into jungle. It transitions into a
yep,
snowy mountain. Like
yep,
none of it
or
overstays its
yeah,
welcome.
exactly. Or into the redwood forests on the coast of California.
Those were epic too.
Those are so
Man, I
good.
forgot about those.
San Francisco, I lived in the Bay Area for a while, so flying around the bay, like over the bay and around San Francisco, and it's like, you know, I can
It
see my
pains
old
me a
house
little
from
bit to
here.
say it because I loved that the first game was in the Colorado area, Yellowstone, Colorado. That was really cool because we don't get a lot of representation from
Right.
the Rocky Mountains necessarily. But man, the map in Forbidden West is so much better.
It is overall. Yeah, it's way better. That's a really good point overall about like, I was going to bring up how there's a lot of varied biomes but they flow very naturally and organically. Like sometimes it feels a little bit like, oh, the snow area and the lava area and the
Yeah, like
jungle
Mario
area.
did a terrible job of that.
Yeah, stupid Mario. No one likes it. Um, but for a game like Horizon that's trying to feel more realistic, and you're literally in like the continental US and you're going from, I think, kind of like the Utah area out to the California coast,
Yeah, or
you
Nevada, something like that.
it adds like a little bit of expectation that it'll be somewhat grounded, and yet they managed to. And granted, this is like thousands of years in the future, and terraforming has happened, and like the climate's probably changed somewhat. So there are some reasons, but there's still a certain level of like, okay, your brain is looking for certain things, and they managed to go from like snowy mountains to desert to jungly areas to the coast of California and make it feel contiguous. And
Yeah.
that was really impressive. But also, like you said, each like little or each medium sized biome was still pretty big. So you felt like you're in this massive open world, and you are in a massive open world. But it's also not too big to where, you're able to kind of complete stuff within that zone. And like they would have a lot of natural barriers for each of these biomes so that you could kind of visually enter a new one and it just kind of flows. And it's so good. I think
It
exploration
helps.
and map
It
design is probably the
helps.
best thing ever.
Honestly, it helps that their source material is California, because that's what makes California so amazing.
Yeah.
Is you
Yeah.
do have snowy mountains, you do have beaches, you do have desert, you do have. I guess you don't really have jungle, but you have the redwoods.
Yeah.
You could have jungle in the future. Who knows? Like you
Right.
said, things could
Exactly.
change. But
Things have
California is
reclaimed
such
it.
a
And yeah.
varied. It's a really an incredible place for how concentrated and varied it can be within just one state or one
Hmm.
section of the U.S. So,
Totally.
um,
So that was all awesome. And I think getting to California was cool because it's like, there's a lot of delightful surprises along the way, both that are like, this is just a natural environment they created that is like really well designed, of like the way they would create it, like not just like, oh, this is mountains and this is whatever. They just did a great job with like where they put lakes and waterfalls, and the way they laid it out was so interesting and fun to explore. And there were some really cool areas you discover. And then I was just like eager to get to California because I was curious, what's it going to be like exploring this place that I'm very familiar with. And so it was like cool that that was kind of at the end for me to then experience, and going through the redwood forests and going through San Francisco. Um, all of that was really cool. And yeah, so I think those are some of my favorite parts of it.
so what did you what did you think of? Excuse me, that's something choking me up here. What did you think
It's a great
of
game.
the? What did you think of the story? Because that was one of the things that I think was a little divisive, maybe at launch, or I heard a few people being like, I didn't love where the story went. And I think it was a little jarring, maybe at first, coming from, we knew this much about Horizon in the first game. And I think it kind of went somewhere where we're like, oh, we didn't quite expect things to get that sci-fi, which is funny for a game with robot dinosaurs, but it
Yeah.
really does kind of get kind of out there with the sci-fi. How did you take all that?
I've always said that the people who had that opinion are idiots. So just get really
I've always said that.
alienate part of our audience. No, I will say though, none of that's felt out of place for me. I expected it to go more. I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn, like the premise is like this AI reshapes the earth, and it's like a technology that corporations lost control of. And that like, and you're a clone. Like the first one was one of the most sci-fi like, and it was cool because it starts
It
out
is,
as
but it's also grounded in the context you're able to see once you start seeing godlike humans who have been alive for centuries return to Earth with their Superman powers.
yeah, like it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah,
I don't feel like that's that far a cry of giant AI controlling robots to like reshape and reclaim the earth and being a clone of like one of the top scientists. Like it, I thought it was fine. I mean, I could see someone not liking the direction the story took, and that's fine. Like that'd be a preference thing. I liked it. I thought it was cool. But in terms of how sci-fi it went, I don't feel like it was that much farther. And yeah, it's like, so there's humans that have been living for thousands of years now, and they went off into space trying to figure out where to go, and they've come back. So in that sense, like I guess you could say it's a little more sci-fi in that there are humans that have gone to space and come back, but it doesn't feel like that far of a cry. When if you have the AI technology to do what was done to the Earth, I can believe that you would have the technology to like go out into the stars a little bit. I'm willing to
yeah, I
believe
would
it. That's
agree.
fine.
I would agree.
But
It was
I could,
surprising. It was surprising for sure.
yeah,
I didn't. It was unexpected, which isn't bad.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I felt it was
but
unexpected, but
so
I thought it was
did you
satisfying.
overall enjoy the writing and the plot of the second game
I did.
of
I
Forbidden
thought the
West?
story was cool, and I liked the story in the first one. I felt like it delivered on. It still felt kind of like fantasy, in that you're a huntress in the wilds chasing dinosaurs, and a lot of the human civilizations on Earth are still very tribal and like building back up after the cataclysm. So it feels kind of a mix of fantasy and post-apocalyptic, like moment to moment, day to day. but you have this overarching epic sci-fi backdrop, and that's kind of the backbone of the plot, and that's like the workings of the world and what Aloy is destined for. Like, it adds a grandiosity beyond the more mundane kind of fantasy and post-apocalyptic like scavenger lifestyle that you're living. And I like that juxtaposition. I think that's cool. And it kind of adds like that drive where it's like, well, I want to go explore all the wilds and stuff, but also there's a big reason. It's because something is going to be ending the world and we need to stop it, and it's this big existential sci-fi threat. And I love that type of plot, so it works well for me. I thought it was pretty well written. A lot of the major dialogue scenes and stuff I think were well done. The facial capture and animations are
It's some of the best.
some of the
Yeah.
best I've ever seen. And it's kind of hard because I'm playing I won't spoil future months like November, but I may be playing some other games where I noticed the facial animations not being as good as Forbidden West, and I miss it. So that's all really
Mm,
good. Um,
what a
one area
tease.
it is one area that I think um, could still be improved, but was better than the first game is the side characters and side quests. Still not, for the most part, a lot of the side characters aren't like crazy memorable or crazy interesting, but I thought they were more memorable and more
Yeah, which
interesting.
is saying something because it was a vast improvement over the first game, and it was still just okay. I you know what? I think
It
they
was
did a pretty
decent.
good job.
Yeah,
I
I
think they
would
did
say
a
it
pretty
was.
good job. There were several characters that I don't know that I like specifically remember, but I do remember that I enjoyed their side quest. I enjoyed kind of their humor. I think they
Yeah,
did a better job of pulling Aloy out of her shell a little bit and showing some personality with these
yeah,
side characters, which even gets further in the DLC. I think they've done a really good job of believably making her a more enjoyable character to watch interact with people from the first
hmm
game to the second. Because the first, she was just like deadpan,
yeah,
serious, and I think they did a lot better job with her character and her interactions with her friends and Silas and different people. So
totally. Yeah, so the two parts to that. One, the side characters. Yeah, I would say the side characters and storyline and enjoyment was like a 7 out of 10 for me in this game. Like, good, enjoyable. Like, if not completely stand out. Whereas in the first one, it was like a 5 out of 10. So it's good. I mean, overall, like this game at its weakest is still pretty good. Um, and then when it comes to Aloy, that's also a great point that her character was pretty stiff and one note in the first game. And in this, she has more nuance and she's more interesting. At times, she's a little bit like vengeful or a little harsh in some ways that I really appreciated. Like they and they give you some options too where you can like choose how you respond to things. But they made her feel a little bit like a huntress who's had to kill a lot and is willing to make hard decisions. And they give you a little bit of agency as to some of those decisions and some of the storylines of like, do you spare someone or kill them, or like what do you do? Um, but I think they gave her a little nuance, made her interesting, but also gave her a little bit more emotion. So there are times where it's like you feel like she has a connection with some of her friends, and you can feel her connection to Elizabeth Sobek, the woman she was cloned
the other
after.
clone.
Um, well, I mean
Do
the
you mean
original.
literally
I
Elizabeth?
meant literally like the connection to the idea of the clone, who she was
Gotcha.
cloned from, but also, yeah, the other clone of her, which is another interesting story beat. Who's I'm forgetting what they called her now, but I thought that was a cool thing too. Is you meet another clone of her who has been like held captive by these sci-fi people who are trying to use like the brain of this
Using her as a
brilliant,
key, basically.
yeah, this brilliant scientist. And the um, the mindset and like personality of this other clone of her was so different and kind of annoying at times and like scared
She
and
was
timid,
annoying. She actually was the
but
most annoying part of the game to me. But I think the point was that just
intentionally
being a
so though.
clone of Elizabeth does not make you a
Yeah,
hero.
but
Does not
also
make
like,
you like her.
yeah, it's like there's more to just being the clone. Is like it's Aloy as a person is her own person, and her experiences and her choices have shaped her and make her unique. It doesn't matter that she's a clone, like she is her own person. So I thought that was cool. But also this other clone, while she starts out pretty annoying, it kind of, you gain understanding as to like where she, like the situation she comes from. Like I empathized with her too, and by
Sure.
the end
Yeah.
I didn't hate her. Like I was like, I kind of get you, and I feel like she grows a little bit and has a little bit of an arc, so that you're like, okay, you're not all bad. And so there was some good character arc stuff there. Silas was cool. He's just a good, like, he's not an antagonist directly. He's like kind of the
No, he's
um
super good. I'm really concerned and anxious to see what they do about him for the third game with, I
same.
forget his name, but with the voice actor passing away.
Mm,
Um, he has such a unique and iconic voice.
yeah.
Also voicing what is it from Destiny, the Commander Zavala. And Destiny, I didn't like what they did. They just kind of changed the voice of Zavala. They didn't really
Without
try to mimic
acknowledging
it
it.
at all.
Yeah.
No, I mean, not that they didn't acknowledge it, but like, I don't know. I feel like I don't feel like it's disrespectful to try and like mimic the voice of the character even after someone's passing. I hope that they're
Especially
able to
for a,
find someone.
yeah,
Yeah, the continuity would just be so weird, and I think a lot would be lost with Silas's character in the third game. If first of all, if they just get rid of him, he seems crucial to the plot still. And
totally.
second of all, if it's just like a completely different voice, it's just going to be really jarring.
Yeah.
I hope
It'd
they're.
be
I
nice if
hope
they
they
could
go through the effort to find someone who can do that voice,
totally.
at least close.
And I'm sure they could get someone who could do it close and kind of have his style. His name, I've been calling him Silas. It's Silence. um, Silence is the character, not Silas. Um, and it was
No, you've
played
been
by
making me
Lance.
call him Silas too.
I know. And I was like, that it sounded right. And then I was like, that's almost right, but not quite. It was played by Lance Reddick. So
Lance
yeah,
Reddick, yeah,
he was good.
legend.
Hopefully, I think especially for something like this, where it's like he was doing this trilogy and then he passed away, like it doesn't feel crazy to have someone
Yeah.
do that impression.
So how far
So
into the DLC did you get?
like halfway, I forget exactly where. So maybe
Oh man, you got to finish it.
I'll
It's
save
I
some of the
want to talk
DLC
about that final boss.
specifics. Okay, let's save the DLC specifics probably for November. Like I'll try and wrap that up. Um, so we'll just talk about Forbidden West in this episode. But yeah, story, characters, plot all comes to a head. Um, one thing I will say is the final boss fight in Forbidden West thematically was really cool. Location was pretty cool, and like aesthetically, I really liked it. But the fight itself, I was just decent. I would say. When you fight, what's the lady's name? The blonde
I don't
lady,
remember.
blonde
Yeah.
sci-fi lady who's like sort of
Blonde
your ally,
sci-fi
but then
lady,
not. And she has like a power
basically the
suit,
mech, the
basically a
alien
mech.
mech.
It's a cool mech. And I liked the
Very cool.
stuff
Yeah.
leading up to it, and I like going up the robot dinosaurs are fighting like you know I'm forgetting those alien species that are invading as you're like climbing up this tower where you face down this lady who's kind of been your ally. So it was all really good, but I feel like that last boss fight could have been just a little better. I don't know how much you
What
remember it,
about it?
but
Do you mean would be
it
better?
just felt a little basic, maybe. I feel like
Oh, interesting.
it's
I
pretty
I
easy.
kind of have. I feel like this is a controversial opinion. I think the combat in Horizon is just okay. Um, I love the puzzle aspect of picking pieces of machinery to target with certain things to get components to break off. I love all of that, but the actual maneuvering of your character, and then when you take damage, the ragdoll
The
effects
ragdoll, yeah.
really makes combat a drag for me mostly in this game. And I think that comes to a head, especially during fights like the final fight, boss
Yeah.
fights, where
Big
you're
powerful
taking
things that
damage
knock
and
you
you're
around.
getting ragdolled a lot, and you're waiting like 3 seconds to get back up and attack. Um,
Yeah. That's the most annoying thing about the game, in my
so
opinion, is when bigger things hit you and it knocks you 5-10 feet
for
back and you
for like
go like
five
this
seconds, you're
for like
just
five
like,
seconds and then you slowly get up and it's like, okay, come on. It takes, and then it happens again. Like,
yeah.
that
Sometimes
is
you
by
get like
far
it'll happen the second you get up, and then just there's like 10 to 15 seconds where you don't have control over
of
your
just,
character. It does
yeah.
not feel good.
No. So that's
So
that's honestly the biggest thing about combat for me. Cause I feel like the drawing, aiming, firing the bow, slowing down time all feels really good. Like you said, kind of not rock, paper, scissors, but kind of like the elemental system of like, what's the right what's the right thing to do, like scan the enemy and understand what's the right thing to shoot at it and what are its
Yeah.
weak points to knock off armor. All of that's great. And I think that works pretty well. If they could fix the ragdolling and maybe a little bit more maneuverability in general is a little clunky, it would help, but it's
Yeah.
serviceable overall. I like the pieces that I'm talking about are serviceable. I think the bow mechanics I think are really good, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that's that. It's great. I guess to summarize, this could be a top 10 game for me of all time. I'll have to like sit down and look at my list, but it's up there. Like it's a um I love the mixture of sci-fi, fantasy, and post-apocalyptic. I love the setting of all these biomes and this great map that leads you out to California. And then, some of the little nods to like places if you've been to California, you may recognize. The good story and better characters in this one, flying around on a flying mount. Um, it's just a very, very good video game. It's like the modern iteration of like what a great open world video game can be, with a great sci-fi plot and likable, now relatively likable characters. So yeah, 9.5 out of 10 if I was to rank it. I loved it. And
Nice.
in our November episode, I'll talk about Burning Shores DLC, which is also really great so far. It's Los Angeles, which is cool.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that in a future
The
episode.
the lead up and then the boss fight for the DLC is so good. I can't wait to
You get me
discuss
excited.
that.
I'll
So
I'll get back to it.
I know I'm
I need to
probably
go finish
overhyping it,
that.
but it's just one of those. It was one of those like this is pretty crazy that this
Yeah.
can be like real time happening in a video game. Just huge, crazy set pieces, good stuff. So I would agree, though. I think that this game, all this time later, you're getting a much better product than at launch, and I think it's among the best, if not the best, Ubisoft open world style games that
Yeah.
exist. I think Origins and this come to mind as like the top two of that style. If you like that Ubisoft ish formula, this is Sony's version, and it's like as good as it gets in that
Yeah.
genre. My last two thoughts I wanted to say: least favorite thing about the game, animations need a lot of work. There's a lot of janky animations in this game that
Yeah.
Aloy
Yeah.
just interacts bizarrely with all kinds of stuff all
Like
the
when
time.
climbing walls or getting on a mount,
Oh,
things like that. It's
for a
very
game with the amount of polish that
unpolished.
this
Yeah.
has, it is so jarring to watch Aloy just glitch out when she's interacting with so many things. And then,
Yeah.
secondly, we talked about the locations in this game being baller. We forgot to mention one of the coolest locations in video games is Vegas in this game.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is so, it's underground,
Sunken Vegas.
buried,
Yeah.
sunken Vegas. And it
Yeah. It
is
was
just
good.
swimming through the dome underneath the sand with the neon lights. And then, that
And
was
there's like
just like,
aquatic dinosaur robots as you're like in the Vegas strip. Yeah, it's good.
that was amazing. So,
It's great. There are a lot of iconic moments. This is a game that will stick with me for a long time. And it's one of those games where I'll look back and be like, "Oh, I remember that part. Oh, that part was great." And
it
yeah,
has some very memorable moments and set pieces. So I'm
absolutely.
fascinated to see. Real quick, we got to move on here, but like, where do you see them going for Game 3? Are we going to?
Yeah,
My only thought is
honestly,
Japan, but I don't know where we're going. Like, we can't go to space. I don't know.
couldn't we?
Like, there's
That
weird
would
stuff happening. What are we doing?
we could go to space a little bit maybe.
Maybe a
I
little
really
bit.
don't know. I mean, there are still world-ending threats with the AI and with um, I think it's going to be a mixture of the AI, like rogue AI stuff on the planet, and the fallout of these corporations and like the few elite people who are now sci-fi superhumans. It's going to be some mixture of those things that I think comes to a head. Um, Maybe some. I think didn't they mention some? They mentioned some danger that is the reason they fled back to Earth. It was like that. Uh, their own
I think it's
AI
the
that
thing
was
that's
like
coming for Earth,
this thing
isn't it?
is coming. So it's got to be that. It's
Yeah,
like an evil
that's
AI that they
the
unleashed
that's
on
the
the
whole
space.
premise of the third one is this
It's coming.
giant orb of AI that's coming to annihilate
AI
Earth
space orb Armageddon, basically.
of
So I think it's
death.
going to,
So like,
yeah. So I think with that,
I don't
you
know.
could go into space potentially a little bit, but also that kind of opens it up that they could kind of go wherever in the world they
How is that a
want and come up.
Horizon game though? How do you make that Horizon
I
gameplay?
think you pick somewhere
I
that
don't know.
has good scenic natural beauty because that's like one of the key that mixes with civilization. So Japan actually is not a bad pick for that.
Yeah, my only
There's probably
thought
a
is
variety
with
of
the
places.
tribe. I forget the tribe's name that you meet in San Francisco. They're clearly from
Yeah,
Japan. My only thought is we head to Japan and we work with Silence to try and figure out some sort of laser cannon to shoot the AI out of the
right,
sky.
something like
That would
that.
be pretty rote and kind of predictable and a little bit of a bummer. I would
Yeah,
like to see them. I don't. I hope they can land this ship. There's some weird stuff happening, and
yeah,
I'd like to see them figure out how to land this in a way that's really satisfying. We'll see.
yeah. I would like for them to do something just a little different than the classic. Big thing coming. Let's make a
Shoot it.
laser and blow it up.
Yeah.
Um, and I really don't know what they do. I could start brainstorming ideas, but I'm not sure what they're actually going to do. I think they've done a good job of like taking some of the big tropes we like and then twisting them just enough to make them a little
This
different.
one was
So
very surprising, so we'll
yeah,
see if they can keep it up in the next one.
yep.
All right, from big budget, let's go to some indie. I played a backlog game on Steam that I've had for a long time, and it's lesser known for sure. It's called Shattered Tales of the Forgotten King, and it's an indie Souls game. You know, they're a dime a dozen. Um, but something about the art style in this one, it's very stylized, very simple art style, simple, like not a ton of textures. I'm trying to think of the
Yeah,
best way to describe this here, but I really like the art style and the design of the world. It's very kind of
this is cool.
sci-fi meets Tim Burton. Um, I don't know. It's interesting,
Yeah,
and so I jumped into this, and I played a lot of it on the Steam Deck, back and forth between Steam Deck and PC, and it's rough around the edges in the way that an indie Souls-like game tends to be. Um, combat's not the most polished thing, um, but for me it worked. For me it worked. I guess is what I'll say. I really enjoyed my time with this. I will say it is the scope of this game is so much larger than I would have guessed at the start. Like, um, I got several hours in, couple hours in, and you finally make it to like the hub that is
mm,
pretty traditional, and you kind of think you understand. All right, this game is most Souls games are pretty linear with a couple branching paths, and then you make it to a point in this game like I don't even know if I'd say halfway through, 30-40%. It feels like you're halfway through, and then you get to a point where you step out into like kind of an open world, and that was kind of shocking for me for this game that I would not have guessed a smaller indie game to have this scope. And I think their scope kind of outpaced their abilities a little bit. You can see it in certain spots where maybe things are a little barren or whatever. But I was pretty quickly able to discern that like this is not, even like an Elden Ring type thing where it's like I really need to be exploring every nook and cranny
yeah,
of this world. If it's worth seeing, I can see it. It's a giant building or like there's something calling your attention to it.
yeah.
Um and I don't it just worked really well. The combat's kind of clunky, but once you get used to it, it's also kind of good. Um I
It
think
looks
you'll know
cool.
though. Yeah, looking at it as you are right now, I think if you look at this for, watch a video for 30 seconds, you'll kind of know like does this speak to me? And if it does, if you're okay with some lesser janky Souls games and the art style speaks to you, I think you will enjoy this because um I came out of it instead of like being, it's when you look at a Horizon game, it's easy to be critical because you're like, all right, this is a huge budget. It's Sony's top of the line. When you look at a game like this, I found myself instead of being critical, being more impressed at what a pretty small team was able to do.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed it. So I don't know. Do you have any other questions about it looking at it? I'm trying to think back.
I don't think. I mean, you mentioned Souls like, so combat exploration. Like, would you say it has Souls like level design in addition to like the combat system, or yeah,
So I would say that mostly, basically, the first third of this game is exactly what you would expect from a Souls like. It is branching paths,
hmm,
checkpoints, shortcuts, all of that stuff. And it's done pretty well, I would say. Then you reach the point where you reach a giant open world area when you realize that the section you were in was kind of like almost in an Elden Ring way. It was like you were in a dungeon and
Yeah.
now you came out into this open world area, and there's things to do and explore and upgrade items to find in the open world area. But also, just part of the goal is traversing this open world area, getting to the other dungeons located around this giant kind of circular open world area. And so you navigate the open world, reach another dungeon, and then it becomes more Souls like from that point. So I would say it's very Elden Ring in that way,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
is interesting because I think this predates Elden Ring by quite a bit. But it is that
Interesting.
concept of
Yeah.
like there's an open area, and you navigate it to get to more dungeon like areas where in the open area you do have like a speeder bike, almost like a Star Wars speeder bike
Oh, cool.
that you can zip around like crazy fast. Actually, it's pretty wild. Um, and then when you get into the dungeons, you can't use that. Obviously, it's very
Hmm.
there's actually a lot of similarities to Elden Ring now that I'm thinking about it. But
Yeah.
that's how the level design goes. It is more Sekiro like. It's less Dark Souls like in that you aren't getting a bunch of different weapons. There aren't different types of weapons. Basically,
Okay.
there's a sword. Every sword has the same animation set, which might disappoint some people. I don't really care that much, but you get different like weights of the sword. This sword is faster and does less damage.
Okay.
This sword is heavier and does more damage. That's really
Right.
the extent of it. Um, you get some Metroidvania type upgrades along the way. As far as combat, yeah, it's pretty typical. You're taking your souls, you're leveling up different
Hmm.
attributes. Um,
Certain amount of
there's various
heals, bonfire
Yeah, you have
type
a certain
things.
amount of heals. There's bonfires.
Yeah.
There's checkpoints, and then there's also like portal gates that can take you from one region to another.
Hmm.
Um,
How
I
are the,
think
how are
it's
the,
really well done. I don't know if the studio is continuing on. I don't know what happened to them, but I would love to see
yeah.
what they do next. There were multiple areas in this game that were very distinct and really really well done, creating a sense of place. There was one town you go to in the open world area that becomes a dungeon, and it's just this really dark, like there's this darkness cloud over this town, and all of a sudden you come into it and it's just like pitch black except for some fires around the town, and it's just kind of this more creepy, I don't know, just very memorable um, areas in this game, and try to do some unique things that were interesting. Some landed, some didn't. But like I said, look at this game. If the art style speaks to you, and any type of janky Souls um, indie game you're into from time to time, you'll like this game. And it runs okay on Steam Deck, but also it looks like if you have a PC or whatever and you're playing it on a nice monitor, it despite its simple design, it looks it can look really cool and times really good.
Awesome.
So
Um, Two final questions on this.
yeah.
Boss fights, are they good?
So actually, that's probably I would say that is one of the shortcomings of this game.
Okay.
The boss fights tend to be rather similar, kind of humanoid. They're fine. I would say the where you fight bosses can be really cool.
Okay.
And I enjoyed the boss fights themselves, but I really would have loved it if it kind of felt like a budget thing. Like
Yeah.
creating full bosses that do weird moves and have move sets, that's probably a lot more effort. So a lot of them tended to be variations of a humanoid creature. There was one boss fight, and it was the first one I got to, where it's you start a game kind of like Hollow Knight or something like that, and then a while into the game it says, "Oh, this is your objective," and it kind of
Hmm.
lays out your objective. The first boss of like, here's your 3 MacGuffin objectives. So I go to the first one. The first boss for that region was really unique and really cool, and I was like, "Oh, sweet! I can't wait to see what else they do." The other ones were pretty much just humanoid bosses, but like I said, set pieces are cool. But yeah, no, boss design, it could have used it. They could have stepped the game up there. I think it's a resource thing there. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
what was
Cool.
the
I
other one?
mean, oh yeah. Other one. Just so, is there much in the way of a story, or is it like kind of? Do you get little hints of a story throughout the world, or is it
Very
mostly
Souls
just?
like in that way. There's
Yeah.
a lot to read, and I did find a lot of it interesting. What did I say? I said sci-fi Tim Burton. I would also
Yeah.
add in some Tron. There's a
Oh,
lot
interesting.
of there's a lot of like almost virtual reality. Um, there's a lot of interesting stuff about like what is this world, Are we
Yeah.
all, is this all digital? Is this an
Right.
afterlife? Is this all digital? Are we all sucked into a virtual reality? There's a lot of stuff like that and some really interesting lore to read
That
about
sounds
like
pretty
what
cool,
this
actually.
world is. So
Yeah.
I think the crossover of ideas between like Tim Burton and Tron, and it's just um, I think that's all really cool
Yeah.
lands for me.
It
So
sounds up my alley for sure. I like a lot of the things that you're saying about it. So we'll have to see if it's in my Steam library these days. It might
oh,
be.
it'll sit in your Steam
It might
library
be.
for a long time.
Um, cool. That sounds neat.
Yeah. All right, let's try and wrap this up. I got two more. I'll try and do quickly. I started a game that I had my eyes on. It came out, I think, last year, maybe. It's called Under the Waves. And this is one I actually ended up playing. It was kind of something me and my wife were looking for, something maybe that she could watch or get a little more invested in. And it was free on one of the tiers of PlayStation Plus. And so I downloaded it because I was curious about it. And we ended up playing through the whole thing. She watched the whole thing. And I really enjoyed it. I think it has some shortcomings as well. But first of all, I'm a sucker for underwater stuff. I just, ever since Subnautica, I
Yeah.
love I love the kind of horror tension mixed with tranquility that is being underwater. I just love that. And this has a really nice little sea moth submarine type thing that you get to traverse the ocean floor, the ocean with. I like the art style. If you're looking at it, it's very, again, very stylized, pretty simple, kind of has a clay like quality to it a little bit, which I also tend to enjoy. But I would classify this game less as a survival game, more as a narrative game. This is a very narrative game.
Okay.
It is played through the course of, I think, like 7 days. So you are an employee of this mega corporation who is manning this station underwater, and it is your job to carry out various tasks and make sure things continue to run for this corporation. I don't know if it ever explicitly states. I think it's an oil corporation. And basically the whole thing devolves into a bit of a mystery, suspenseful thriller sort of, about like this evil corporation, your role in it, and then also your character is dealing with um some mental emotional baggage, some things that they're trying to process that I won't spoil because it's kind of a reveal. It's pretty obvious early on, but um, he's kind of not going insane, but he's really trying to process some things, and maybe some of that comes out in um, illusions or hallucinations, or is it real? I don't know. Um, so, anyways, you play each day is kind of like some things happen. You have to take care of it. There's some side things you can do, and then you move on to the next day and the next day and the next day. And there's a lot of narrative in this game, but it's delivered really well. I think the voice acting is pretty good. And by the end of it, I had a bit of an affinity toward the characters, and I felt relatively attached. And a lot of the dialogue is delivered while you're doing things, which is great. You can drive around in your submarine or your little sea moth and take care of tasks, and you're on an intercom. The other game I would relate this to that I did a lot while playing it is oh man, what's that hiking game? Firewatch.
Firewatch. Yeah.
Because
I
it's
liked
it's
Firewatch.
it's like the underwater version of Firewatch, although this has a lot more gameplay than Firewatch
Okay.
did. So
Yeah.
that's better. But it does have its walking sim narrative moments, and you are kind of speaking to someone over an intercom or a walkie-talkie or whatever through a lot of the game. So it does kind of, it reminded me a
Feel
lot
like
of
that.
Firewatch.
Yeah.
So if you
That's
like
cool. I like
Firewatch,
that.
like the concept of Firewatch, and also just like underwater Subnautica type things, I think you'll like this. It has suspenseful moments. It has set pieces that are kind of creepy and um, I don't know a better word than suspenseful, but it didn't overstay its welcome. I ended up getting the platinum on it, which wasn't too hard. And I thought this was just a neat little game. I kind of, it took me a minute. Like when I booted it up the first hour or two, I was like, nah, this ain't it. Like I don't think I'm going to continue. And it kind of grew on me. And by the end of it, I really enjoyed it. I was expecting it to be a game where I was like, it was something we could enjoy together, but I didn't really care for it that much.
Yeah.
No, I actually really enjoyed this game at the end of it. I think it's a well-made game. And if any of the elements I've described sound like something you're into, you probably like this game. It's pretty well made.
Well, dang, maybe I should get to this because I love Subnautica and I love Firewatch. And I love a good creepy narrative that is a mixture of evil corporations and
Oh, it's
unprocessed
got some
personal
Returnal
trauma.
narrative vibes to it too.
Okay.
That's the other thing that kind of popped up in my mind, which is not great. If you ask me, I didn't love. It's better than Returnal. I'll give it that. But there were some plot points that I was like, oh, this is kind of pulling on the Returnal
Okay.
situation a little bit. So there's
Gotcha.
Under the Waves,
Cool.
and
I'm
like I said,
actually
if you own,
intrigued by that.
yeah, no, it was good. I enjoyed it. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It was a really
Nice.
good game that I enjoyed, and I do not regret playing and finishing. There was really no point at which I was like not enjoying playing the game. So, and like
Hmm.
I said, if you own PS Plus, I think Extra, it's on there for now. So I don't know if it's on Game Pass. I'm sure you can pick it up for $10 on sale, probably.
Yeah.
No idea. So there was one for September, and then to end September. Oh, did you have any other questions, by the way, about Under the Waves? Anything?
Was the narrative resolution at the end satisfying without saying what it was?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it was.
Cool.
It wasn't mind blowing. You kind of know what's happening, you know where it's going, but you do get to make a choice at the end. And, for the platinum, I made a cloud save and made both decisions, and both were interesting and worth seeing. Yeah, I would say it was not a letdown at all. So
Cool. Awesome. I actually kind of look forward to playing that one. So
yeah,
the last thing I need is more games to add to my list, but that
I
sounds
know.
like the right mixture of
That's what we
things.
do every month is we get on here and I tell you about games that you should play that you probably never will. And then you just go, ooh, let me buy that. Let me add that to my
Now,
list.
I'll play this and put off Lies of P. How's that?
How dare you? I believe it
That's
though. I
probably
do.
what will happen.
I do believe it. Oh, such a tragedy. Okay. To round out the month, I went back to another backlog game. I don't know. This was a weird month for me. I don't know if I was just trying to scratch stuff off the backlog or if I was craving really unique experiences, but I have owned Little Nightmares for a very long time. I don't know when the first one came out, forever ago.
Mm,
I played the first 30 minutes to an hour of it and put it down and never touched it. Despite I love Limbo, one of my all-time favorite games. I love Inside, also one of my all-time favorite games. And this I always thought, oh, Little Nightmares looks like it's in the same vein, but I never stuck with it. And so this at the end of September, I went back and I spent I think maybe a night, maybe 2 nights. It's a very short game. I mean, we're talking you can beat the game in under an hour, but
wow. Okay.
probably 4 to 5 hours. If you're
Taking your time.
taking your time with it and being scared, right?
Yeah.
Um, this game is really good. It's really good, and people, if you haven't played it and you like, I guess I don't. If you haven't played Little Nightmares, but you have played Limbo, I don't know how big of a group that is, but like it really is inside Limbo. It's that same kind of
Yeah.
like light puzzle elements. You get a couple things you can interact with, light puzzles, but also just lots of tension and like, am
Lots
I
of
going to get
atmosphere.
caught?
A
And
lot of
lots of
atmosphere. Yeah.
atmosphere. There's
I
even,
started this like
oh, did you?
a week or so ago. Um, and because it was in my library, you were talking about it at some point, and I just struck my interest of like something smaller. So I'm not very far in. Knowing how short it is, I actually might try and prioritize that too because I think I could finish it. But
You could finish
I'm
it in a night, maybe two. Yeah.
yeah, because I played maybe 20 minutes or so. Did like the first one or two or three rooms or puzzles, and
Yeah.
it's pretty creepy. The atmosphere is good, very ominous.
It's super
Um,
on point.
I loved Limbo. I haven't played Inside, but I loved Limbo, and it does
You
feel
haven't
like
played
Limbo, but a
Inside?
little different. Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, you have to play Inside, dude.
I
That game
know.
is wild.
Yeah, I know.
Huh.
I need to do that,
Okay.
but I did love Limbo, and so I'm enjoying this so far.
Well, maybe you'll get to share your thoughts in in a
November.
upcoming
Um,
podcast.
so this is the first one that you played in September?
Yes, I started with the first one. I own the second one and all the DLC, but I wanted. I think there's a third one coming out. I don't know. It's not the same dev team, so we'll see if they're able to continue what these games do so well. But I kind of wanted to
Yeah.
get on board. I wanted to have played 1 and 2 and all the content for that, and then also for 3 coming out. So um,
Yep.
it was just it was time to do it. So
Yeah.
really short. I don't own the DLC for 1. I'll grab it at some point. It's not on sale. It's only $10 to grab. I think there's like 3 little mini DLCs for
Yeah.
Little Nightmares 1. But man, I really enjoyed this game. The gameplay moment to moment is great. I love the art style. There's a couple boss fights in the game that aren't your traditional boss fights. They're an inside Limbo esque. Well, I guess Limbo doesn't have boss fights, but just kind of a light puzzle boss fight. But
Kind
they're
of the
really
puzzle is
well done.
escaping the thing,
Yeah, kind of escaping or using your
or tricking
environment
it
to.
into, yeah,
Yeah.
snapping the spider
Um,
legs in Limbo type of thing.
yes. Yeah. The first boss fight in Little Nightmares, I thought was just so well designed. From a creepy factor, from a mechanics factor of figuring out, oh, I see what I'm doing here. Really good. The final boss
Yeah.
fight too had some pretty good mechanics. Everything in between. I also think the allegorical nature. I don't know if allegory is the right word, but just like the symbolism of this game. As Little Nightmare, you're this little tiny child, these giant monster like adults and stuff. I just, you can piece together
Mm-hmm.
what the point of the story is and what it's
Yeah.
symbolic of. And by the end of it, it was just like it actually hit home narratively of like, oh dang, that
Yeah.
was a really good ending to this game if you're paying attention to what this all means.
I'm
And kind of
excited
you can have your
because,
own interpretation too of like what happens at the end. What does it mean?
yeah, I'm excited
It's
to
really
finish it
good.
actually, because there's already like something that an environmental story beat or something that's happened within the first couple of rooms where you're like, okay, that's interesting. And I've kind of started thinking about what some of this might mean, what type of like interpretation might be happening. I don't know. That gets me curious.
It's good. It's really good. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I went for the platinum. Here's the kicker. I went for the platinum. Spent like an extra probably 2 to 3 hours on this game. Because one of the trophies is to beat the game in under an hour without dying, which requires cloud saves. There's some annoying parts of the game
Yeah.
where it's very hard to not die. Went through this whole thing, found out there's no platinum. Didn't look hard enough. It's a Limbo gold trophy, and I was just
That's
like,
amazing.
dang.
Oh,
Not gonna say I wasted a night because I still enjoyed playing the game, but I was like that I would not have done that if I had seen
yeah,
that. Which is what does that say about us and trophies, anyways? But
something.
that was the kicker. I was like, dang, I just assumed, and
The
sure enough, it did
allegorical
not have
nature
one.
of trophies and your
Yep,
time.
the symbolism, quite literally. So
Yeah.
I want to play the DLC. I'll get it at some point, and then Little Nightmares 2. I hope that they can continue to kind of say something with these games. I don't know if they managed that in the second one as well. And then again, I'm a little concerned about 3. Are they going to be able to continue what the studio has done so well with a new
Yeah.
developer? But man, 1 is great. If you haven't played it, go play it. It's short and sweet, and does just about everything perfectly. I have almost no criticisms of the game whatsoever. So that was a good way to end
Awesome.
September with a nice little. Like I said, I feel like I bounced around a lot and played a whole bunch of different stuff
Yeah.
lately. I've
You had a
been
very varied month.
Yeah, I've been avoiding maybe bigger games or like more comfort food type games in lieu of. Does that make sense? In lieu of like
Mm-hmm.
weird, enigmatic, interesting experiences more so, which we'll get into more with next month because I can see the future, and there's going to be a lot more in October to discuss. So
Yeah. So you had all the weird indie unique experiences, and I had the big comfort food
the big, yep,
monolithic experience. So there we go.
that's what you come here for. Both sides of the spectrum because we're
That's
both on the
right.
spectrum. So That was a good one. I like that
And
one.
with that, this has been
Thank you for
Neverlag.
joining us. Yeah, this has been Neverlag. No, thank you for joining us. We will be back very, very quickly here with an episode from the future about November, about October. So hopefully we'll see you there. Thanks for joining us.